In the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war.
In the Marvel universe, heroes are forged through tragedy, mutation, or cosmic accident. They learn to balance power with responsibility, to show mercy even to enemies, to believe that redemption is always possible. But what happens when a weapon crashes into this world? A weapon that has never known mercy, never questioned orders, and was genetically engineered to see compromise as heresy? The sky above Manhattan tore open at 2:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. Not the usual swirling portal of an alien invasion. Not the crackling energy of a dimensional gateway. This was something else. A wound in reality itself, bleeding impossible colors that hurt to perceive. The air shrieked with a sound like a million souls screaming in unison as something massive punched through the fabric of space-time. Brother Captain Titus Valoran of the Ultramarines chapter, 3rd Company, had been in the middle of a boarding action against a chaos-corrupted cruiser when the warp swallowed him whole. One moment, he was mag-locked to a breach corridor, bolt pistol barking controlled bursts into heretic cultists. The next, reality inverted. The Imperium, that roiling hell dimension that allowed faster-than-light travel, convulsed around him with a violence he'd never experienced in 200 years of service. Then came the fall. He crashed through the roof of a Manhattan office building with the force of an orbital strike, ceramite power armor absorbing impact that would have vaporized an unaugmented human. Debris exploded outward. Civilians screamed and fled. Car alarms wailed across 6 city blocks. Titus rose from the crater in the 23rd floor. His armor's auto senses immediately scanning the environment. His helmet's internal display flooded with data. Atmospheric composition, breathable, high pollutants. Gravitational constant, 0.98 standard Imperial. No immediate threats detected. But the Vox channels were silent, not jammed, not corrupted. Simply absent. No squad markings, no Imperial battle cant, no connection to the 3rd Company, to the fleet, to the Imperium of Man itself. He was utterly, impossibly alone. Through the shattered windows, he observed the city below. Towers of glass and steel stretched toward the sky, impressive by primitive standards, though laughably fragile compared to Imperial hive cities. The people wore strange garments, carried personal data slates, and most disturbing of all, showed no visible signs of Imperial authority, no Aquila symbols, no prayer chains or purity seals, no evidence of the God Emperor's dominion. His enhanced hearing picked up the approaching sirens before the vehicles came into view. Ground-based transports, crude but organized. Titus calculated he had perhaps 90 seconds before contact. His training as a company captain demanded immediate tactical assessment. Where was he? What hostile forces controlled this region? How could he re-establish contact with Imperial forces? The first helicopter crested the building line, and Titus's auto senses logged its design. Rotary wing aircraft, primitive combustion engine, mounted projectile weapons. It bore markings his armor's cogitator couldn't translate. But the aggressive positioning was universal. A voice boomed from the aircraft's external speakers. Words in a language his armor's translation systems struggled to parse before syncing to local linguistic patterns. Unidentified armored individual. You are in violation of multiple federal laws. Power down your equipment and surrender immediately. Titus's hand moved to his bolt pistol. 8 rounds remained in the magazine. His combat knife hung at his hip. His power armor registered at 94% efficiency. The dimensional breach had drained some energy, but redundant systems were already compensating. Federal laws. The phrase meant nothing to him. Federation? Some local governance structure? Without knowledge of the political landscape, without confirmation of imperial presence. Every action carried catastrophic risk of violating the Codex Astartes' protocols for first contact with isolated human populations. More aircraft arrived. Ground vehicles formed a perimeter below, disgorging armed personnel in tactical gear. Titus's helmet display counted 43 hostiles. No, personnel. Not yet hostiles. Not until they opened fire. A second voice, calmer, more measured. "We know you're confused. We want to help. Please power down your weapons and step away from the building's edge. We can talk about this." Talk. The concept seemed almost quaint. In the 41st millennium, negotiations began with orbital bombardment and ended with mass graves. But he was not in the 41st millennium. His armor's chronometer had reset during the breach, but the stellar readings were catastrophically wrong. The sun was too yellow, too stable. The sky held only one moon. He was somewhere, somewhen else entirely. Titus made his decision. He would observe, gather intelligence, determine if these people served the Emperor, had forgotten the Emperor, or never knew the Emperor existed. The last possibility was almost too heretical to contemplate. He activated his external speakers, his voice emerging as a deep, resonant bass filtered through his helmet's Vox grill. "I am Brother Captain Titus Valoran, Ultramarines Chapter 3rd Company. I seek contact with Imperial authorities. Direct me to your planetary governor or regimental command immediately." The silence that followed told him everything he needed to know. They had no idea what he was talking about. One of the helicopters banked closer, and Titus saw the pilot clearly for the first time through his helmet's magnification. Human, unaugmented, wearing a uniform that bore a strange eagle symbol. Not the Emperor's holy Aquila, but something else. Behind the eagle, the letters S.H.I.E.L.D. The calmer voice returned. "Sir, we don't have any record of an Ultramarines or Imperial authority, but we'd like to help you. My name is Agent Phil Coulson. Can you tell us where you're from?" Titus felt something he hadn't experienced since his transformation into a space marine over a century ago. Genuine uncertainty. Not fear. The psycho-indoctrination had burned that weakness from his mind. But the creeping awareness that his tactical doctrine, his entire strategic framework, was designed for a universe that apparently didn't exist here. "I am from Holy Terra," he said, watching their reactions through multiple video feeds his armor had already hacked from their primitive networks. "I serve the God Emperor of mankind. And I do not know how I came to be on this world. If you crave stories of cosmic collisions, where the heroes of one universe become the monsters of another, smash that subscribe button, because in the Marvel universe, even the Emperor's finest must learn that there are different ways to be a hero, or a threat." Below, he watched the armed personnel tighten their perimeter, watched additional vehicles arrive, watched what his auto senses identified as enhanced individuals taking positions, humans moving with speed and precision that suggested mutation or augmentation. They thought him a threat, and perhaps they were right too. After all, a space marine was designed for one purpose: war eternal. The question now was whether this new universe would give him an enemy to fight, or force him to become something his creators never intended. Brother Captain Titus Valoran settled into a combat-ready stance and waited for these agents to make their move. The standoff lasted 17 minutes before S.H.I.E.L.D. made their move. Titus watched through his helmet's multi-spectrum display as the perimeter transformed from containment to assault formation. Snipers repositioned on adjacent rooftops, 12 of them, targeting solutions calculated and dismissed as inadequate. His ceramide armor could withstand heavy bolter fire. These primitive kinetic rounds would barely scratch the paint. Ground teams deployed what appeared to be energy weapons, crude plasma projectors that might actually prove problematic if they achieved concentrated fire. Then the formation parted, and 3 figures approached on foot. The first was a woman with red hair, moving with the fluid grace of an elite operative. His auto senses detected concealed weapons, enhanced reaction speeds, augmented perhaps, or simply extraordinarily well trained. The second was a man in red, white, and blue armor, carrying a circular shield, his gait suggesting enhanced strength and decades of combat experience. The third made Titus's targeting system flicker with uncertainty. A man in golden armor that his sensors registered as simultaneously primitive and impossibly advanced. Powered by some form of arc reactor technology his cogitator couldn't fully analyze. The woman raised her hands in a non-threatening gesture, though Titus noted she kept her weight balanced for rapid movement. "Captain Valoran, my name is Natasha Romanoff. These are Captain Steve Rogers and Tony Stark. We'd like to talk." "Talk." Titus kept his bolt pistol lowered but ready. "Your agent Coulson already attempted dialogue. I await contact with Imperial authority. You will direct me to your planetary governor, or I will locate them myself." The man in the golden armor, Stark, tilted his head. "Jarvis, are you getting readings on that armor?" A synthetic voice responded from Stark's suit. "Inconclusive, sir. The material composition defies conventional analysis. Power signature suggests a self-contained fusion core, but the energy output exceeds theoretical limits by several orders of magnitude. And sir, I'm detecting organic matter inside the armor. Extensive organic matter. That's because I'm wearing it, not piloting it," Titus said, his translator systems now fully adapted to their language. "And your scanning is an act of aggression. Cease immediately." Stark's hands came up. "Easy there, Master Chief. Just trying to understand what we're dealing with. You crashed through a building, you're wearing what looks like medieval armor made from future tech, and you're asking for an emperor nobody's ever heard of. Can you see why we're a little concerned?" "Your concern is irrelevant." Titus took a step forward, and instantly 24 weapons trained on him. He didn't flinch. "I am a loyal servant of the Imperium of Man. I have fought Xenos horrors, demon incursions, and heretic uprisings across 100 worlds. I do not require your understanding. I require information." The shield bearer, Rogers, stepped forward, positioning himself between Titus and Stark. A tactical error. The shield might deflect his bolt rounds, but the explosive mass-reactive ammunition would still shower them with shrapnel. "We're not your enemies, Captain, but you need to understand, there is no Imperium here, no Emperor. This is Earth, and whatever brought you here, you're a long way from home." For the first time since his arrival, Titus felt the full weight of his isolation. His helmet's internal display showed no warp signatures, no astronomican beacon, no psychic choir of humanity's trillion souls. The very fabric of reality felt wrong. Too stable, too quiet, lacking the constant background scream of the immaterium. "Impossible," he said. But even as he spoke, his transhuman intellect was processing the evidence. The stellar positioning, the technological regression, the absence of any imperial infrastructure. The Emperor's light reaches all corners of the galaxy. If this is truly Terra, it's Earth, Romanoff interjected. And I don't know what Terra is, but this planet has never had an emperor. We have nations, governments, heroes, We have problems, certainly. But no galactic empire. Titus's grip tightened on his bolt pistol. Then you are either lying, or I have been transported beyond the Imperium's borders. Perhaps into the Eastern Fringe, or... He paused, accessing memories from his chapter's librarium, or into an entirely different reality. Now you're getting it. Stark's faceplate retracted, revealing a bearded face with sharp, calculating eyes. Dimensional breach. We've seen it before. Hell, we've caused it before. The question is, are you going to be a problem, or can we work together to figure out how to send you home? Home. The word carried unexpected weight. Titus had not thought of anywhere as home since his induction into the Ultramarines as a child. His home was his company, his chapter, his duty to the Emperor. And now all of that was gone. I do not cooperate with unknown entities, Titus said, his training overriding the moment of vulnerability. You have not proven your loyalty to the Imperium. You have not demonstrated any understanding of proper authority. For all I know, you serve the ruinous powers. The what now? Stark muttered. But Rogers was studying him with a soldier's eye. You're military. I can see it in how you move, how you think. You've been fighting a long time, haven't you? 2 centuries of service, Titus confirmed. Since my ascension to the Adeptus Astartes at age 14. Stark's eyes widened. You're 200 years old? And you started at 14? What the hell kind of... Tactical assessment, Titus interrupted, his attention suddenly diverted. His auto senses had detected an anomaly in the electromagnetic spectrum. A spike in energy that... The air beside them tore open with a crack of thunder. A portal swirled into existence, crackling with eldritch energy that made Titus's battle plate immediately recognize. Warp contamination. Not identical to the Immaterium he knew, but close enough to trigger every combat protocol in his augmented brain. Through the portal stepped a figure in crimson robes and a levitating cloak, hands crackling with mystical energy. Behind him, Titus could see impossible geometry, architecture that bent in non-Euclidean angles, symbols that hurt to perceive. Apologies for my tardiness, the figure said, voice resonant with power. I am Dr. Stephen Strange, Sorcerer Supreme, and I've been tracking the dimensional rupture that brought you here. His eyes, glowing with arcane light, fixed on Titus. What I want to know is, what manner of warfare are you fleeing, that it was violent enough to tear a hole between realities? Titus's bolt pistol snapped up, targeting systems locking onto the sorcerer's center mass. Every fiber of his being screamed that this was a psyker, unsanctioned and dangerous, wielding the powers of the warp without the Emperor's blessing. Psyker, he roared, his voice amplified by his armor's external speakers. By the Emperor's decree, you are condemned. His finger moved to the trigger. Rogers' shield flew through the air, striking the bolt pistol with impossible precision and sending Titus's aim wide. The bolt round detonated against a rooftop, the explosion sending debris cascading down. Stand down, Rogers commanded. That's an ally. But Titus was already moving. 200 years of combat experience translated into action faster than thought. He surged forward, his power-armored bulk covering the distance to Strange in 3 massive strides. His combat knife cleared its sheath, the monomolecular edge capable of cutting through tank armor. Strange's hands wove complex patterns, mystical shields manifesting. And Titus crashed through them like they were paper. The sorcerer's eyes widened in shock as the Space Marine's armored fist closed around his throat, lifting him off the ground. "Impossible," Strange choked out. "Those wards should have..." "I am psycho-conditioned to resist warp manipulation," Titus growled. "Your witch powers hold no sway over the Emperor's chosen." His knife rose, prepared to deliver the Emperor's judgment upon this unsanctioned psyker. Then iron hands clamped around his arm. Rogers, straining with super soldier strength, was attempting to pull his arm down. Stark's repulsors charged with a high-pitched whine. Romanoff had produced a weapon crackling with electrical energy. "Let him go." Rogers's voice carried absolute authority. "That's not a request." Titus calculated his odds. 3 enhanced combatants at point-blank range, unknown capabilities, dozens of support personnel with weapons trained on him. The psyker gasping in his grip, possibly preparing a devastating counterattack. And beneath all of that, the growing realization that he was wrong. Not about the threat. Psykers were always threats. But about the situation. These people weren't heretics or cultists. They were protecting their own, responding to what they perceived as an attack. From their perspective, he was the aggressor. The Codex Astartes had protocols for this: assessment and adaptation, strategic flexibility in uncertain situations. He released Strange, who dropped to the ground, coughing. The sorcerer's hands still glowed with power, but he made no aggressive move. "In my universe," Titus said slowly, "unsanctioned psykers must be eliminated on sight. They are doorways for demonic possession, threats to all humanity. If your reality differs..." He paused, the words bitter on his tongue. "Then I have erred in judgment." Strange straightened, rubbing his throat. His eyes studied Titus with new intensity. "Your reality sounds absolutely terrifying. And yes, we handle things differently here. Magic exists, but it has rules, disciplines. I'm sworn to protect this dimension, not corrupt it." "Prove it," Titus demanded. Strange's expression shifted to something between sympathy and concern. "Captain Valoran, I can sense the dimensional echo on you. Where you come from, the barriers between realities are thin, aren't they? Constantly eroding. You live in a universe that's literally falling apart." "We endure," Titus said simply. "We have endured for 10,000 years. We will endure for 10,000 more. The Emperor protects. But the Emperor isn't here." Stark's voice was quiet. "So who protects you?" The question hung in the air, unanswered. S.H.I.E.L.'s Helicarrier proved to be an impressive feat of engineering, even by Imperial standards. The massive airborne vessel hung in the clouds like a miniature hive ship, though Titus noted its defenses were woefully inadequate for the void of space. Still, for a civilization without access to standard template construct technology, it demonstrated impressive ingenuity. They had not shackled him. This showed either wisdom or foolishness. Titus hadn't decided which. Instead, they'd escorted him to a reinforced holding area that they called a consultation room. The walls were transparent, allowing observation from multiple angles. His armor's sensors detected cameras, scanning equipment, and at least 4 hidden weapon systems that would activate if he made any aggressive move. He sat in a chair designed for someone half his size, his bulk making the furniture groan. Across from him, Nick Fury, director of S.H.I.E.L.D., according to the introductions, studied him with one good eye that held the calculating gaze of a veteran commander. "Let me see if I've got this straight," Fury said, his voice carrying the rough edge of someone who'd seen too much. "You're from a future where humanity controls 1 million worlds, worships a corpse god on a golden throne, and fights an endless war against demons, aliens, and heretics. That about cover it? The God Emperor is not a corpse, Titus said, his voice sharp. He sits upon the golden throne, his will guiding the Astronomicon, his protection shielding humanity from the predations of the warp. To suggest otherwise is heresy. Fury leaned back. Right, heresy. We're going to have to work on your definition of that word. He tapped a data slate. Dr. Strange confirmed your story, at least the part about dimensional displacement. Says the energy signature on you matches nothing in our reality. You're definitely from somewhere else. Then you will assist in my return, Titus stated. That's where things get complicated. Fury slid the data slate across the table. Titus's enhanced vision parsed the information instantly. Energy calculations, dimensional mathematics, probability assessments. Strange says, the rift that brought you here closed immediately. Self-sealing. Opening it again would require power outputs we don't have access to. And even if we did, there's no guarantee we could target your specific reality. There are infinite dimensions out there, Captain. Finding yours? That's like finding one specific grain of sand on every beach on Earth. Titus absorbed this information with the stoic discipline of his training. Though internally, his post-human mind was already calculating alternatives. Then I am stranded. For now, yeah. Fury's expression softened, barely. Which means we need to have a conversation about what happens next. You're a walking weapons platform from a fascist theocracy, trained to kill anything that doesn't match your definition of proper human. That's a problem. I am the Emperor's will made manifest, Titus said. I do not expect you to understand the necessity of the Imperium's methods. You have not seen the horrors that lurk beyond the light of civilization. You have not watched worlds burn because someone showed mercy to a cultist, compassion to a mutant, or tolerance for the alien. Actually, we have. A new voice entered the conversation as Captain Rogers stepped into the room, strange and stark behind him. We fought aliens, gods, demons, if you want to call them that. And we've won without sacrificing our humanity in the process. Titus's lip curled. Your humanity is a luxury afforded by ignorance. How many Xenos species threaten your world? How many demon incursions have you weathered? How many of your psychers have succumbed to possession and slaughtered millions? We've had close calls, Strange said, conjuring a chair and sitting with an easy grace that made Titus's hand itch for his bolt pistol. The Chitauri invasion, Dormammu's attempted consumption of our dimension, various hell lords and demon princes. But we face them without automatically assuming every mutant is a threat or every magic user needs execution. Then you are fools awaiting your inevitable destruction. Titus stood, his armor's servos humming with suppressed power. In 10,000 years, the Imperium has learned that mercy is the first step toward extinction. Every compromise weakens the bulwark against chaos. Every deviation from the human baseline risks corruption. Is that what you really believe? Rogers' voice cut through the tension. Or is that what you've been conditioned to believe? The question struck deeper than any physical blow. Titus's hand moved unconsciously to the purity seals on his armor, the prayer strips that had been affixed by the chapter's chaplains. I believe in the Emperor. I believe in my duty. What else is there? Choice, Stark said simply. The ability to look at your orders and say, no, there's a better way. That's what separates soldiers from heroes in our world. Heroes. Titus spoke the word like a curse. You play at war, You capture enemies and imprison them, allowing them opportunities for escape and recidivism. You debate ethics while threats gather strength. You are children playing with weapons you don't understand. Fury's eye narrowed. And yet we're still here. Earth's still standing. Humanity still thrives. Maybe our way isn't as weak as you think. Before Titus could respond, alarms began shrieking throughout the Helicarrier. Red emergency lights bathed the room. A technician's voice crackled over the intercom. Director Fury, we have multiple contacts breaching the perimeter. Signatures match. Director, we're reading demonic entities. Dozens of them. Titus's entire demeanor shifted instantly. His hand moved to his bolt pistol, which S.H.I.E.L.D. had wisely not tried to confiscate after his demonstration of its effectiveness. Demonic incursion. Where? Strange's hands were already glowing with eldritch light, mystical symbols appearing in the air. Lower Manhattan. Someone just opened a portal to a hell dimension. The entities coming through are... He paused, his expression grave. They're similar to what you described. Warp entities. Not identical, but the fundamental nature is the same. Then we have minutes before they establish a foothold. Titus moved toward the door with absolute certainty. Every second of delay allows them to corrupt more souls, summon more reinforcements. We move now, or we lose the city. Hold on. Fury stepped in front of him. You're not going anywhere until we establish some ground rules. You're not S.H.I.E.L.D. You're not Avengers. You're an unknown asset with extreme prejudices and a tendency toward lethal force. Titus looked down at the director, his helmet's lenses glowing with cold blue light. You have demonic entities manifesting in your city. You can debate my methods after we've purged the incursion. Or you can waste time with bureaucracy while innocents are slaughtered and possessed. Choose quickly. Rogers stepped forward. He's right. Whatever else he is, he's fought these things before. We need him. He met Titus's gaze. But you follow our lead. No executing civilians. No killing anyone who surrenders. We save people first. Kill monsters second. Understood? Your rules will get people killed, Titus said flatly. Maybe, Rogers acknowledged. But they're what separate us from the monsters. You want to help? You follow them. Otherwise, you stay locked down here. For a long moment, Titus considered simply breaking through the wall and deploying solo. He calculated his odds of success. High, but not certain. These heroes possessed capabilities he didn't fully understand, and working against them would be tactically inefficient. More importantly, they were right about one thing. Demons were manifesting, and every second of debate gave the corruption more time to spread. I will comply, he said finally. But understand this. If I witness demonic possession, I will execute the host immediately. That is not negotiable. The possessed cannot be saved. Strange's expression was troubled. In our experience, possession can sometimes be reversed. I've done it myself. Then your demons are weaker than mine, Titus said. Pray that remains true. Minutes later, Titus stood in the Helicarrier's deployment bay as a Quinjet was prepped for launch. He watched the Avengers assemble with a tactical eye, assessing capabilities and weaknesses. Rogers, super soldier, enhanced strength and resilience. Vibranium shield that defied conventional physics. Useful in melee, limited ranged capability. Stark, powered armor with impressive energy weapons, flight capability, sophisticated tactical systems. The armor was his weakness. Damage it sufficiently, and the man inside was merely human. Romanoff, baseline human but highly trained. Carrying what appeared to be Widow's bite shock weapons, she would die first if demons closed to melee. Strange, the Psyker, potentially their most powerful asset and their greatest liability. "You're analyzing us," Stark observed, his faceplate open. "Planning how to kill us if it comes to that?" "Yes," Titus said without hesitation. "It is what I was trained to do. Honest, I'll give you that." Stark's faceplate snapped shut. "Jarvis, keep a close monitor on our new friend. Any sign he's turning on us, I want to know immediately." The Quinjet's engines roared to life. Through the open ramp, Titus could see Manhattan's skyline, and rising above it, a pillar of crimson fire that clawed at the sky. His enhanced vision detected shapes moving through the flames, twisted, wrong, shapes that should not exist in three-dimensional space. He felt something he hadn't experienced in decades, not fear, but the cold anticipation of a righteous war. Here, at least, was something he understood. Here was an enemy that deserved no mercy, no quarter, no hesitation. "For the Emperor," he murmured, checking his bolt pistol's magazine. 8 rounds. He would need to make each one count. The Quinjet launched into the sky, racing toward the Inferno. Behind him, Captain America was coordinating with S.H.I.E.L.D. forces, calling for evacuation of civilians, establishing perimeter zones, requesting support from other heroes. Such carefully organized chaos. In the Imperium, the response would be simple. Surround the area. Kill everything that moves, burn what remains. Efficient, brutal, effective. But he had agreed to their methods. For now. 2 minutes to drop zone, the pilot announced. Titus maglocked his boots to the deck and chambered around. Through the Quinjet's windows, he could see the Hell portal more clearly now. A tear in reality vomiting forth entities that his centuries of experience immediately categorized. Lesser demons. Dozens of them. Perhaps a greater demon anchoring the portal. This would be a test, not of his combat ability, that was beyond question, but of whether these heroes could actually survive the kind of warfare that defined his entire existence. 30 seconds, the pilot called. Rogers stood beside him, shield ready. "Remember, we save who we can. No civilian casualties." "In a demon incursion, there are no civilians," Titus said quietly. "Only the dead, the dying, and the soon-to-be possessed. I will try to honor your request. But when the time comes to choose between mercy and survival, I will choose survival, every time." The Quinjet's ramp dropped open, revealing the burning streets of Manhattan below. And Brother Captain Titus Valoran, servant of the God Emperor of mankind, leaped into battle once more. The streets of Manhattan had become a war zone that would have looked familiar on any Imperial world facing demonic incursion. Civilians fled screaming as reality bled and twisted. The lesser demons, creatures of claws and fangs and too many joints, poured through the crimson portal like a tide of corruption. Cars burned, buildings cracked and groaned under unnatural forces. The air itself tasted of sulfur and decay. Titus hit the ground at terminal velocity, his armor's shock absorbers converting the kinetic energy into a crater that spiderwebbed the asphalt. He rose from the impact point, bolt pistol tracking targets with mechanical precision. 3 demons charging from the left. Distance, 40 meters. Civilians trapped behind them in a coffee shop. His first shot took the lead demon in what approximated a head. The mass-reactive round penetrating before detonating. The creature's skull exploded outward in a spray of ichor and immaterial essence. The second round caught the next demon's center mass, the explosive force tearing through its corrupted flesh. The third demon leaped, claws extended, jaws unhinging to impossible width. Titus caught it mid-flight with his free hand, ceramite fingers crushing through its ribcage. He slammed it into the pavement hard enough to shatter bone and stone together, then put a bolt round through its spine for certainty. Clear left. He voxed on the comm frequency S.H.I.E.L.D had provided. 3 contacts eliminated. Civilian secured. Jesus Christ. Stark's voice crackled back. You just went through them like tissue paper. They are lesser demons, Titus replied. Already moving toward the next cluster of contacts his auto senses detected. Barely corporeal, the true threat is the anchor point. He switched to tactical assessment mode, his post-human mind processing battlefield data. The portal requires a demon of significant power to maintain. Find it, kill it, the portal collapses. Strange's voice came through, strained with effort. Already on it. I'm detecting a massive demonic presence 3 blocks north. It's Emperor in heaven. It's huge. Do not invoke the Emperor's name lightly, witch, Titus growled. But his attention was already shifting northward. Through the smoke and chaos, he could see it now. A demon of truly impressive scale, easily 4 stories tall, wreathed in flames that burned reality itself. Its form was almost bestial, horned and hooved, but with too many eyes and mouths that screamed in languages that caused madness in those who heard. That's a greater demon, Titus assessed. Class, probably bloodthirster equivalent. Strengths, immense physical power, reality manipulation, near immunity to conventional weapons. Weaknesses, psychic attacks, blessed weapons, sustained overwhelming force. He paused. Do any of you possess sanctified armaments? Define sanctified, Rogers responded. He was on the ground now, S.H.I.E.L.D deflecting a demon's claws before delivering a crushing blow that sent the creature tumbling. Weapons blessed by holy authority, imbued with the power of faith or righteous purpose. My shield's made of vibranium, the strongest metal on Earth. Does that count? Unlikely. Titus vaulted over a burning vehicle, his enhanced strength allowing him to use the wreckage as a springboard. He landed in the middle of a demon pack, his combat knife singing through corrupted flesh. Strange. You are our best option. Your psychic, your magical attacks can harm it directly. Already working on it, Strange replied. The sorcerer had positioned himself at a rooftop overlooking the greater demon, hands weaving complex patterns as golden light gathered around him. But I need time to prepare a banishment spell strong enough. That thing is anchored deep. Then we buy you time. Roger's voice carried absolute certainty. Avengers, converge on the big one. Keep it distracted. Titus was already moving, his transhuman physiology allowing him to cover ground at speeds that surprised even these enhanced individuals. He burst from an alley just as Stark engaged the greater demon with repulsor blasts. The energy weapon scored the demon's hide, but failed to penetrate deeply, as expected. Lesser technology against greater corruption rarely proved effective. The demon swatted at Stark like one might swat a fly, but the Iron Man suit's maneuverability allowed him to dodge. Its attention shifted, multiple eyes focusing on Rogers as he charged forward, shield raised. Mortals! The demon's voice boomed, spoken in a language that shouldn't exist, but that Titus's mind translated automatically. You dare challenge a prince of the burning hells? We dare a lot, Rogers shouted back, hurling his shield. The vibranium disc struck the demon's knee joint with a resounding clang, actually drawing a bellow of pain. Interesting. Perhaps the shield did carry some form of inherent power. Titus closed the distance, analyzing attack vectors. The demon's size was a disadvantage. Larger target, but more mass to protect. Its hooves were planted, suggesting limited mobility. The portal behind it pulsed with energy, feeding its strength, but also tying it to a fixed location. Stark, can your weapons target the portal itself? Titus voxed. Already tried. Whatever's generating it has some kind of energy shielding. I'd need about 10 times more power than I'm packing. Then we collapse it from the source. Titus engaged his armor's full combat protocols, feeling the machine spirit awaken fully for the first time since his arrival. Systems that had been running at standby surged to full power. His helmet's display painted targeting solutions, threat assessments, tactical overlays. The greater demon noticed him for the first time, and Titus felt its attention like a physical weight. This close, he could sense the wrongness of it, the way it bent space and corrupted reality simply by existing. In the 41st millennium, this creature would have required a full tactical squad to bring down, supported by heavy weapons, and possibly a dreadnought. Here, he had a man in powered armor, a super soldier with a shield, and a witch who claimed to protect rather than corrupt. It would have to be enough. For the Emperor! Titus roared and charged. The demon's fist came down like a meteor. Titus sidestepped with enhanced reflexes, feeling the shockwave as the blow cratered the street. He fired his bolt pistol point blank into the demon's wrist, the explosive rounds tearing through muscle and sinew. The creature howled, and Titus used the moment to leap, his armor's servo motors amplifying his jump to impossible heights. He landed on the demon's forearm, mag-locking his boots to its burning flesh. The heat was intense. His armor's temperature regulators screamed warnings, but he ignored them. His combat knife, monomolecular edge glowing with the friction of the demon's unnatural heat, plunged deep into the creature's elbow joint. The demon thrashed, trying to shake him loose. Titus held fast, years of boarding action experience teaching him how to maintain position on a moving target. He withdrew the knife and struck again, each blow aimed at critical joints and tendons. Strange, Rogers called out. How much longer? 30 seconds. Keep it still. Still? It's a 4-story demon. How are we supposed to... Rogers's question was answered by the arrival of reinforcements. A Quinjet screamed overhead, and from it dropped a figure in purple pants with green skin. Titus's sensors immediately flagged the entity as possessing strength levels comparable to an Ogren. The Hulk, they called him. He landed with earth-shaking force and immediately grappled with the demon's leg. The greater demon stumbled, its attention divided between multiple attackers. Stark intensified his assault, targeting the eyes. Rogers's shield struck again and again, each impact drawing ichor and howls of rage. And Titus climbed higher, using the demon's own thrashing to ascend toward its head. His bolt pistol was empty now. He'd fired his last round into the creature's shoulder, but his knife remained. And more importantly, his faith. "Emperor," he whispered, the prayer litany coming unbidden to his lips. "Guide my hand. Make me your instrument. Let your will be done through your servant." The demon's head turned toward him, multiple mouths opening to speak words of power that could shatter minds and souls. Titus saw reality beginning to warp around those words, saw the fabric of space-time preparing to twist. And then Strange's spell completed. Golden chains of pure magical energy erupted from nowhere, wrapping around the demon like pythons of light. The creature's words of power died in its throats as the chains tightened, binding it, forcing it downward. The portal behind it flickered, its connection to the demon disrupted. "Now!" Strange shouted, and Titus understood. He leaped from the demon's shoulder, dropping toward its head with his knife reversed in a downward grip. Time seemed to slow as he fell, his enhanced perception allowing him to aim with perfect precision. The demon's eyes, all dozen of them, tracked his descent, filled with rage and, perhaps, the first hint of fear. His knife plunged into the demon's skull, the monomolecular edge penetrating bone and brain matter. He felt the creature's essence beginning to unravel, felt the immaterial substance that gave it form starting to dissipate. But it wasn't enough. The blade alone couldn't kill something this powerful. So Titus did something he had never done before. He spoke directly to the machine spirit of his armor, not as a commander to a tool, but as a brother to a battle companion. "One more surge," he whispered. "Everything you have left." The armor responded. Power flooded through his systems, through his knife, transforming the blade into a beacon of pure electrical energy. The demon screamed as the current tore through its form, disrupting the demonic essence that held it together. Strange's chains tightened further, a golden light burning away corruption. Rogers' shield struck one final time, the vibranium somehow resonating with Strange's magic. Stark fired every remaining weapon simultaneously, energy and micro-missiles converging on the demon's chest. And the Hulk, with a roar that echoed across Manhattan, ripped one of the demon's legs clean off. The greater demon collapsed, its form already beginning to dissolve. The portal behind it flickered wildly, then imploded with a sound like 1,000 windows shattering. The remaining lesser demons shrieked as their connection to their realm was severed, their forms losing cohesion and dissipating like smoke. Titus rode the demon's corpse to the ground, landing in a crouch as the creature's essence finally dissipated entirely. Around him, silence fell, relative silence at least. Sirens wailed, civilians emerged from hiding, but the immediate threat was gone. He stood slowly, his armor's systems reporting critical power depletion. The surge had drained his reserves to dangerous levels. His knife was slag, the blade destroyed by the overload. But he was alive, and the demon was banished. The Avengers gathered around him. Rogers looked exhausted but satisfied. Stark's armor was scorched and smoking. Strange lowered himself to the ground on shaking legs. The Hulk was already transforming back into a smaller, human form. Banner, they called him. "Well," Stark said finally, his faceplate retracting to reveal a soot-stained face. That was new. Titus surveyed the battlefield with a critical eye. 14 civilian casualties visible from his position, 3 times more than necessary if proper purging protocols had been followed. But hundreds more were alive, evacuating under S.H.I.E.L.D's coordination. By Imperium standards, the collateral damage was acceptable. "You fight well," he said grudgingly, "for those untrained in demon warfare." Rogers actually smiled. That almost sounded like a compliment. Do not mistake assessment for approval. But Titus found himself not reconsidering, but perhaps reassessing. They had survived. More than survived. They had triumphed, using methods that would have been deemed heretical in his universe. Cooperation with a psyker, concern for civilian casualties, restraint even in the face of demonic corruption. And it had worked. "The question is," Strange said, still catching his breath, "what opened that portal in the first place? Demons don't just decide to invade on a whim. Someone summoned them, someone with knowledge and power. Then we find them," Titus said, "and we purge them before they can attempt another incursion." "See? That's where we're going to have a problem." Fury's voice came through the comms. because S.H.I.E.L.D. just traced the summoning ritual to a location in Hell's Kitchen. And the person who performed it? She's asking for asylum. Says she's running from something worse than demons. Titus felt his jaw clench. A witch who summons demons requests mercy? This is a test of your weakness. Maybe, Rogers said. Or maybe it's a chance to get information. We do things differently here, remember? We investigate before we execute. Investigation allows corruption to spread. Maybe, but it also prevents us from killing innocents. Rogers met his gaze steadily. You agreed to follow our rules. That agreement doesn't end just because the fighting's over. For a long moment, Titus stood silent, his post-human mind warring with centuries of conditioning. Every instinct screamed to locate this witch and deliver the Emperor's judgment. But he had given his word, and a Space Marine's word was as unbreakable as ceramite. I will accompany you, he said finally, but I will not be silent if I witness heresy. Fair enough, Rogers said. Let's go talk to our mystery summoner. As they boarded the Quinjet, Titus found himself wondering, in a universe without the Emperor's light, what kept humanity safe from the darkness? And could their methods, so foreign, so seemingly weak, actually prove stronger than the Imperium's iron discipline? He didn't know, but he was beginning to suspect the answer might surprise him. The safe house in Hell's Kitchen was a third-floor apartment that smelled of old coffee and fear. S.H.I.E.L.D. had secured the perimeter with agents on every corner, but Titus noted the inadequate coverage. A single sniper team could breach their security within seconds. He filed this observation away as the Avengers entered the cramped living space. The woman waiting inside was younger than he'd expected. Mid-20s, dark hair, eyes red from crying. She wore street clothes stained with what his auto senses identified as blood, her own, from cuts on her palms. Ritual scarring, self-inflicted, the marks of someone who had bargained with powers beyond mortal comprehension. Her name is Sarah Chen, Fury said, standing beside a S.H.I.E.L.D. analyst reviewing a data slate. Graduate student in ancient history at Columbia, no criminal record. No prior contact with law enforcement. Then 3 days ago, she starts purchasing occult materials and books on demonology. And you allowed this? Titus demanded. We're not a thought police state, Captain. Fury replied coolly. People are free to read whatever they want. It's only when they actually summon hell beasts into Manhattan that we take an interest. Sarah looked up at Titus, and he saw genuine terror in her eyes. Not of him, though his armored bulk filled half the small room, but of something else. Something that haunted her thoughts. I didn't have a choice, she whispered. They were coming for me. I needed protection. Strange stepped forward, his expression unreadable. Who was coming for you, Sarah? The Hand. Her voice cracked. They killed my sister. She was investigating them for a journalism piece, and they killed her. Made it look like a mugging. But I knew. I found her notes, her research. They're a cult, an ancient one, and they've been operating in New York for decades. Rogers exchanged a glance with Romanoff. We've encountered the Hand before. Assassins, ninjas, trained in mystical arts. Dangerous, but usually focused on specific targets. They're more than that now, Sarah said. My sister discovered something, proof that they're planning something massive. A ritual that would give them control over death itself. She had evidence, documentation, and when she died, I inherited it. Titus's tactical mind immediately assessed the situation. You possessed intelligence on an enemy organization, they moved to eliminate you. Rather than seeking protection through proper authority, you attempted to summon demonic entities for defense. He turned to fury. The appropriate response is immediate execution, followed by purging of any contaminated materials. "We're not executing anyone," Rogers said firmly. "She opened a portal to a hell dimension," Titus countered. "She allowed dozens of demons to manifest in a populated area. 14 civilians died because of her actions." Sarah flinched as if struck. I know. I tried to control it, to bind them to protect only me, but the ritual went wrong. The circle broke and they just kept coming." Tears streamed down her face. "I'm a murderer. I killed those people as surely as if I'd pulled a trigger." "Yes," Titus said. "You did." "Titus," Rogers began. "Do not coddle her with false comfort," Titus interrupted. "She made a choice. She sought power from the warp, from hell, as you call it. She paid the price in innocent blood. These are facts." He turned his helmeted gaze back to Sarah. "In my universe, your soul would be forfeit. The Inquisition would burn you as a witch, and your ashes would be scattered in unconsecrated ground." Sarah's sobbing intensified, her shoulders shaking. Strange spoke quietly. "But we're not in your universe, are we?" Titus was silent for a moment. "No, we are not." "Then let me ask you something, Captain Valoran," Strange continued. "In your universe, with your methods, how many people like Sarah exist? How many desperate souls, pushed to the edge, make catastrophic choices because they have no other option?" "Millions," Titus admitted. "The Imperium is not a forgiving place. The weak perish. The desperate fall to corruption. This is the nature of existence in a hostile universe. And here?" Strange gestured around the room. "We have a choice. We can execute her, prove that your brutal efficiency is the only way. Or we can do something your Imperium apparently never considers. We can offer redemption." "Redemption is a fairy tale," Titus said. "Once corruption touches a soul, it spreads like a virus. She has trafficked with demons. Her soul is marked. Eventually they will return for her, and when they do, she will not have the strength to resist." "Maybe," Rogers said. "Or maybe if we help her, teach her, give her support and protection, she becomes strong enough to resist. Maybe she uses her knowledge of what she's done to help prevent others from making the same mistake." Titus wanted to argue. Wanted to cite 1,000 examples from Imperial history where mercy led to disaster, where a single corrupted individual had doomed entire worlds. But something held his tongue. A nagging uncertainty that had been growing since his arrival in this universe. These people, with their optimism and their mercy, should have fallen to chaos long ago. Yet they hadn't. They survived. They thrived. Perhaps there was something he didn't understand about the nature of corruption in this reality. "What intelligence does she possess?" he asked finally. "You said her sister discovered proof of the Hand's plans." Fury nodded to the analyst, who activated a holographic display. Files appeared in the air. Photographs, documents, financial records. Miss Chen's sister was thorough. She tracked money flowing from dozens of S.H.I.E.L.D. corporations, identified key members of the Hand's leadership, and most importantly, she found the location of their next ritual site. Titus studied the data with professional interest. The Hand's organizational structure resembled certain heretic cults he'd encountered, cellular, compartmentalized, with multiple layers of secrecy. Their ritual preparations showed sophistication, requiring months of planning and significant resources. "When is this ritual scheduled?" he asked. 3 days, Sarah said quietly. My sister's notes indicated they needed a specific astronomical alignment. It happens in 3 days. And what is the ritual's purpose? Sarah met his gaze, and for the first time, he saw something other than fear in her eyes, determination. They're going to raise an army of the dead, not zombies or mindless corpses, something worse. Warriors who've died throughout history, pulled back from death and bound to the hand service. My sister estimated they could raise thousands, maybe tens of thousands. Titus's mind immediately categorized the threat. Necromancy, not true demonic possession, but a perversion of the natural order nonetheless. In the Imperium, such practices were punishable by exterminatus, planetary annihilation. Here, in a universe with only one inhabited world, such extreme measures were impossible. This threat is substantial, he acknowledged. It requires immediate response. Which brings us back to Sarah, Rogers said. She knows more about the Hand's operations than anyone. She studied their mystical practices, trying to understand what killed her sister. She can help us stop them. In exchange for her life, Titus said. In exchange for a chance, Rogers corrected. A chance to make amends, to use what she knows for good instead of destruction. Titus turned to Sarah. If I agree to this, and understand, girl, I do not agree. I merely defer to local authority. You will answer every question I have about your ritual. You will explain exactly how you opened that portal, what safeguards you attempted, where your knowledge came from. Every detail. Sarah nodded quickly. Yes, anything. I'll tell you everything. And you will never, under any circumstances, attempt to contact demonic entities again. Not for protection, not for power, not even for knowledge. Your trafficking with the warp ends here, today, forever. I swear, she whispered. Titus looked at Rogers. This is a mistake. She is a liability. But I acknowledge that I do not fully understand the rules of engagement in this universe. I will trust your judgment. Once. If she proves herself corrupted, if she shows any sign of further demonic contact, I will execute her personally. Is this understood? Crystal clear, Rogers said. And Sarah, he's not kidding. You get one chance. Don't waste it. I won't, Sarah said. I promise. Fury closed the holographic display. Then we have 3 days to plan an assault on the Hand's ritual site. Strange. I want you working with Miss Chen to understand their mystical preparations. Stark, analysis of their facility security. Rogers, tactical planning. And Titus. He paused. You've fought necromancers before? On 17 separate occasions, Titus confirmed. The Imperium has extensive experience combating those who would disturb the honored dead. Good. Then you're on threat assessment. Tell us what we're really up against. As the meeting dispersed and plans began to form, Titus found himself standing at the apartment's window, looking out over Hell's Kitchen. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and red. In the 41st millennium, such beauty was rare. Most worlds lived under perpetual twilight or the harsh glare of dying stars. Here, even after a demonic incursion, even with threats looming, people simply continued. They rebuilt. They hoped. They believed tomorrow would be better than today. Such foolish optimism. Such dangerous mercy. And yet, they survived. Rogers approached, standing beside him. You think we're making a mistake. I think you are allowing emotion to override tactical necessity, Titus replied. But I also acknowledge that my way has not brought peace in 10,000 years. Perhaps your methods deserve observation. That's progress, Rogers said with a slight smile. 3 days, Captain. Let's see if we can save this city without becoming the monsters we're fighting. Titus said nothing, but privately, he wondered. In a universe without the Emperor's light, what separated the heroes from the monsters? And which was he? The next 72 hours transformed the Helicarrier into something resembling an Imperial war room. Titus had seen command centers across 100 worlds, and while S.H.I.E.L.'s technology was primitive by his standards, their efficiency impressed him. Holographic displays showed the Hands facility, a converted warehouse in Red Hook, Brooklyn. Satellite imagery revealed defensive positions. Strange's mystical scrying added layers of information that no conventional surveillance could provide. Titus stood before the tactical display, his ceramite armor reflecting the blue holographic light. Around him, the Avengers and S.H.I.E.L.D. senior staff studied the target with varying degrees of concern. The facility has 3 entry points, Romanoff said, highlighting portions of the warehouse. Front entrance, loading dock, and a rooftop access. All heavily guarded. My contacts in the area report increased hand activity over the past week. They're bringing in reinforcements. How many? Rogers asked. Conservative estimate, 200 fighters, all trained in ninjutsu, many augmented with mystical enhancements. We've encountered hand operatives before. They're fast, lethal, and utterly devoted to their cause. Titus accessed his armor's database, cross-referencing with his own combat experience. 200 enemies. Standard tactical response would be orbital bombardment, followed by drop pod insertion of 3 tactical squads. Estimated casualties, 100% enemy, 0% friendly. We don't do orbital bombardment, Fury said dryly, and we try to minimize collateral damage. That warehouse is in a populated area. Then your tactical options are severely limited. Titus magnified the holographic display, his enhanced vision picking out details others missed. The ritual site will be in the center of the structure, maximum distance from all entry points. They will have established defensive perimeters in concentric rings. Breaking through without alerting the entire facility is impossible. What about Strange's magic? Stark suggested. Portal us directly to the ritual site. Skip the defenders entirely? Strange shook his head. They've warded the interior. Powerful protection spells that prevent teleportation or dimensional manipulation. I could break through, but it would take time and alert them immediately. We'd lose any element of surprise. Then we don't use surprise, Rogers said. We hit them hard and fast. Multiple entry points simultaneously, overwhelming force, straight to the objective. Titus considered this. A frontal assault, crude but effective if you possess sufficient force superiority. He paused. What about the resurrected warriors? Miss Chen indicated the Hand plans to raise an army. Have we determined where these bodies are stored? Sarah Chen stepped forward hesitantly. She'd spent the past 3 days working with Strange, reviewing her sister's research and her own terrible knowledge. Her hands still bore the ritual scars, but her eyes carried new determination. According to my sister's notes, the Hand has been collecting remains from battlefields and graveyards for months. Civil War soldiers, World War veterans, even ancient warriors from archaeological sites. The bodies are stored in the warehouse's sub-basement. A sub-basement? Titus's tactical mind immediately flagged this. Show me. Strange manipulated the holographic display, adding a new layer beneath the warehouse's ground floor. A massive underground space appeared, far larger than the building above it. Mystical expansion. The interior space is larger than the exterior dimensions. Common technique in dimensional manipulation. How many bodies? Titus demanded. Sarah consulted her sister's notes. Estimated 5,000, maybe more. Silence fell over the room. Even Fury's expression tightened. 5,000 resurrected warriors, Stark said slowly. Okay, that's officially worse than I thought. Jarvis, what's our combat readiness against those numbers? Based on available data regarding hand mysticism and reanimation techniques, probability of mission success against 5,000 hostile combatants is estimated at 12%, sir. I've fought worse odds, Rogers said, but his tone suggested he didn't believe it. Titus accessed combat records from his centuries of service, necromantic armies. He'd faced them on Cardis IV, where a fallen chaos sorcerer had raised the entire population as undead thralls. The Ultramarines had won that battle, but at terrible cost. 43 battle brothers lost. An entire company bled dry to purge the corruption. Reanimated warriors possess certain advantages, he said carefully. No fear, no pain, no morale to break. But they also have weaknesses. They require a central controlling intelligence, in this case, the hand's ritualists. Eliminate the controllers, the army falls. So we target the ritual leaders, Rogers said. How do we identify them? They will be at the center of the summoning circle, channeling the mystical energy required for mass reanimation. Strange, can you detect them? The sorcerer nodded slowly. If I can get close enough, yes. The amount of power they're channeling will be impossible to hide. But getting close enough means fighting through their defenders first. What if we split our forces? Romanov suggested. One team hits the main floor, draws their attention. Second team infiltrates through the sub-basement, approaches the ritual site from below. Titus considered the proposal with professional interest. A feint and flanking maneuver. Tactically sound if executed properly, but timing is critical. The distraction team must hold long enough for the infiltration team to reach the objective. I'll lead the distraction, Rogers said immediately. Negative, Titus countered. You are the tactical leader. You should command the infiltration team. I will lead the distraction. Rogers frowned. Titus, the distraction team will face overwhelming numbers. 200 hand fighters, possibly more, even with support. I have fought for 2 centuries against enemies that would break your mind to comprehend, Titus interrupted. I have held breaches against demon incursions. I have stood alone against Xenos hordes while my brothers evacuated civilians. 200 assassins are not an insurmountable obstacle. He's not wrong, Stark said. I've seen him fight. He's like a walking tank crossed with a meat grinder. If anyone can hold a line against those odds, it's him. But he won't be alone, Fury interjected. We can provide S.H.I.E.L.D. tactical teams for support. Heavy weapons, air support? No, Titus said flatly. Your soldiers will die in seconds against hand fighters. They lack the enhanced physiology to compete. Send them, and you send them to their deaths. Then who goes with you? Rogers asked. Titus turned to the Hulk, or rather, to Bruce Banner, who'd been quietly reviewing scientific data in the corner. Dr. Banner, your transformed state possesses sufficient durability and strength to survive sustained combat. You will accompany me. Banner looked up, surprised. You want the Hulk on your team? I want overwhelming force multiplied by tactical discipline. Your other self provides the force. I provide the discipline. Hulk doesn't really do discipline, Stark muttered. Then he will learn, Titus said, or we will fail. Those are the options. Strange stepped forward. I should go with the infiltration team. When we reach the ritual site, I'll need to counter their mystical defenses while you handle the ritualists physically. Agreed, Rogers said. Romanoff, you're with us. Stark, you're mobile. You provide aerial support for both teams as needed. Fury, coordinate evacuation of civilians in the surrounding area. I don't want anyone nearby when this goes down. The plan solidified over the next hour. Entry points identified. Timing calculated. Equipment distributed. Titus reviewed his bolt pistol. S.H.I.E.L.D's armorers had managed to fabricate additional ammunition, though he doubted their understanding of mass reactive warheads was complete. Still, 20 rounds were better than 8. As the meeting concluded, Sarah Chen approached him. Captain Valoran, I wanted to thank you. For what? Titus didn't look at her, his attention focused on weapon maintenance. For not killing me. For giving me a chance to make this right. I did not give you anything, Titus said. Captain Rogers gave you mercy. I simply chose not to contradict his judgment. He finally looked down at her. Do not mistake my restraint for forgiveness. You summoned demons into a populated area. 14 people died. That blood stains your soul permanently. I know, she whispered. I live with it every day. Good. You should. He returned to his weapon. But perhaps in this universe, stained souls can still serve a purpose. In mine, they are simply purged. I am uncertain which approach is correct. Sarah hesitated, then said quietly, My sister believed people could change. That redemption was always possible. I didn't understand that before. But watching you these past few days, seeing you question your own certainties, maybe she was right. Titus's hand stilled on his weapon. I question nothing. I observe. There is a difference. Is there? Sarah asked, and walked away before he could respond. Later, as night fell and the operation's launch time approached, Titus stood alone in the Helicarrier's observation deck. Through the reinforced windows, he could see New York City sprawling below. Millions of lights representing millions of lives. In the Imperium, such a concentration of humanity would be considered a minor hive city, barely worth notation in official records. Here, it was precious, worth protecting, worth dying for. Rogers joined him at the window. Second thoughts? Space Marines do not experience doubt, Titus said automatically. Then more slowly, but I find myself questioning whether my training adequately prepared me for this universe. How so? In the Imperium, every decision is filtered through doctrine. The Codex Astartes provides tactical solutions for every scenario. The Emperor's will guides all actions. But here, he gestured at the city. Here, you make decisions based on hope, on the belief that people can be better than their worst moments. It is tactically unsound, and yet you survive. Maybe that's because hope isn't a weakness, Rogers said. Maybe it's the strongest weapon we have. Titus wanted to argue. Wanted to cite imperial history, to explain why hope without discipline led to chaos and corruption. But he thought of Sarah Chen, working to redeem herself through service. Thought of the Avengers, fighting impossible odds through teamwork and trust. Thought of Strange, wielding powers that would condemn him in the Imperium, yet using them to protect rather than corrupt. Perhaps, he said finally, we will see. Tomorrow, we face 5,000 reanimated warriors and 200 mystical assassins. If your hope proves stronger than their death magic, I will acknowledge merit in your methods. Rogers smiled slightly. And if it doesn't, then I will fight as I always have, until victory or death. The Emperor protects. We protect each other. Rogers corrected. That's how we win. As they stood together, watching the city sleep, Titus found himself wondering. In 10,000 years of service to the Emperor, had he ever truly fought for something rather than against something? Had he ever protected rather than purged? Tomorrow would provide answers, one way or another. The warehouse district of Red Hook lay silent under a moonless sky. Titus crouched on a rooftop 3 blocks from the target, his armor's night vision painting the world in shades of green and gray. Beside him, Bruce Banner huddled in a jacket that would soon be shredded, his nervous energy palpable. "You've done this before," Titus said, statement rather than question. "Controlled transformations?" "Yeah. Doesn't mean I like it." Banner's hands trembled slightly. "The Hulk and I, we have an understanding now. But when things get violent, when the anger takes over completely, I lose time. Hours sometimes. I wake up and have to piece together what happened. In the Imperium, your condition would be classified as mutation. You would be executed or conscripted into penal legions." Titus checked his bolt pistol's magazine. "Here. You are considered a hero." "Some days I'm not sure which is right," Banner admitted. Titus's calm crackled. Rogers's voice. "Infiltration team in position. Strange confirms the ritual is beginning. We're moving in." "Acknowledged," Titus responded. He stood, his ceramite armor's servos humming. "Dr. Banner, it is time." Banner removed his glasses, tucking them carefully into a pocket. "For what it's worth, Captain. Try not to die. The Hulk gets angry when friends die." He closed his eyes, and Titus watched with clinical fascination as the transformation began. Banner's skin shifted from pale to green. Muscles expanded exponentially. Bones lengthened and thickened. Clothing tore. Within seconds, the nervous scientist had become 8 feet of barely contained rage, eyes glowing with emerald fury. "Hulk ready," the creature rumbled. Titus engaged his external speakers. "Our objective is simple. We assault the warehouse's main entrance. We engage every enemy we encounter. We do not stop until the infiltration team completes their mission or we are overwhelmed. Do you understand? Hulk smash bad guys. Close enough." Titus activated his squad vox. "Stark, we are moving. Provide aerial reconnaissance." "Copy that, big guy. I'm seeing heat signatures all over that warehouse. You're about to have a very bad day." "I have had worse." Titus turned to the Hulk. "For the Emperor and for your Avengers. For friends!" Hulk roared and leaped from the rooftop. Titus followed, his armor's jump pack firing a brief burst that turned his fall into a controlled descent. They landed in the street before the warehouse with enough force to crack the asphalt, and immediately, the hand responded. Ninjas poured from every shadow, dozens of them, black-clad figures moving with supernatural speed. Swords gleamed. Shuriken flew. The first wave crashed against them like a dark tide. Titus's bolt pistol barked, each shot precisely calculated. A ninja's chest exploded, another's leg disintegrated. His combat knife sang through the darkness, the monomolecular edge parting flesh and bone with equal ease. Around him, the Hulk was a whirlwind of destruction, each swing of his massive fists sending bodies flying. "First wave eliminated," Titus reported. 15 hostiles. Enemy response time, 12 seconds. They are coordinated. More hand fighters appeared, and with them came something worse. Titus's auto senses detected mystical energy signatures. hand warriors enhanced with dark magic, their speed and strength augmented beyond human limits. One of them moved like lightning, blade aimed for the gap between Titus's helmet and chest armor. The Space Marine pivoted, catching the sword between his armored fingers. The blade shattered against ceramite. His counter-strike took the assassin in the throat, the impact crushing vertebrae. Enhanced hostiles engaged. He voxed. Mystical augmentation confirmed. Threat level, moderate. Moderate? Stark's voice crackled. There's like 50 of them converging on your position. Then the odds are almost fair. Titus fired 3 rounds in rapid succession, each bolt finding its mark. The explosive ammunition left craters in flesh and armor. The Hulk grabbed 2 attackers simultaneously, using them as clubs against their comrades. The warehouse's main entrance exploded outward, and through the smoke came something that made even Titus pause. A figure in crimson robes, face hidden behind a demon mask, hands crackling with dark energy. Behind it, 2 massive warriors in ornate armor. Too large to be human, their movements too fluid. Resurrected champions, Titus identified. The ritual has already begun. The robed figure spoke in a language Titus's translator struggled with, ancient Japanese mixed with mystical cant. But the meaning was clear. Destroy the intruders. The 2 armored warriors charged. Hulk met them head-on, his fists impacting their armor with thunderous force. Metal bent. The warriors didn't fall, didn't slow. They fought with the skill of lifetime warriors combined with the tirelessness of the dead. Titus engaged the robed mystic, his tactical mind analyzing attack patterns. The figure's dark energy formed barriers that deflected his bolt rounds, absorbed his knife strikes. Impressive defensive capability, but defense required concentration. He switched tactics. Instead of attacking the mystic directly, he targeted the ground beneath its feet. His bolt rounds cratered the asphalt, destabilizing the mystic's footing. The barrier flickered for just an instant. That instant was enough. Titus closed the distance, his armored bulk overwhelming the mystic's defenses through sheer mass. His combat knife found the gap in the robes, driving deep into flesh. The mystic gasped, dark energy dissipating. Primary mystic eliminated, Titus reported. Hulk status? Hulk winning. The green giant had one of the armored warriors in a headlock, systematically tearing off pieces of armor. The second warrior lay motionless, its helmet crushed. More enemies poured from the warehouse. Titus counted 40, 50, 60 hostiles. His ammunition counter showed 8 rounds remaining. His armor's power reserves were at 40%. The Hulk was tireless, but even he had limits. Rogers, I hope your infiltration is proceeding successfully, Titus voxed. We are significantly engaged. Rogers' voice came back strained. We've reached the ritual chamber. Strange is countering their magic, but they've got protection we didn't expect. We need more time. Time is a resource rapidly depleting. Titus shot 2 more attackers, then used his empty pistol as a club to cave in another's skull. Accelerate your timeline, or we will be overrun. Working on it. Strange's voice joined the channel. These wards are incredibly complex. I need maybe 2 minutes to... An explosion rocked the warehouse. Titus's sensors detected a massive energy surge from within the building's heart. Strange? Rogers called. What was that? They triggered a failsafe. The ritual is accelerating. They're raising the army now, all at once. The ground beneath Titus's feet trembled. From the warehouse's shattered entrance, he heard it. The sound of thousands of bodies beginning to move. Dead warriors, awakening to unnatural life. How long until they're fully animated? Titus demanded. 90 seconds, Strange replied. Maybe less. Titus looked at the Hulk, who was surrounded by a dozen hand fighters but grinning with battle joy. Looked at his ammunition counter, 6 rounds. Looked at the warehouse where, at any moment, 5,000 undead warriors would emerge. The tactical assessment was clear. They couldn't win. 2 combatants against 5,000, even with their capabilities, was mathematically impossible. The Codex Astartes had no solution for this scenario except strategic withdrawal and orbital bombardment. But he wasn't in the Imperium, and these people didn't retreat. "Stark," Titus voxed. "I require immediate assistance, everything you have." "On it." "Jarvis, divert all non-critical power to weapons. Let's light this place up." Iron Man screamed out of the sky, repulsors blazing. Missiles launched from his armor's micro-launchers, each one targeting clusters of hand fighters. The explosions were devastating, clearing a 20-meter radius around Titus and the Hulk. But from the warehouse, they came. The dead warriors. Soldiers from a dozen different eras, wearing uniforms from conflicts spanning centuries: Confederate gray, Union blue, World War khaki, modern tactical gear, ancient samurai armor, all moving with mechanical precision, weapons ready, eyes empty of life, but filled with terrible purpose. "Hulk not like dead things," the green giant rumbled, a note of uncertainty entering his voice for the first time. "Agreed," Titus said. He raised his bolt pistol, aimed at the center of the advancing horde. "But we hold this line. For your friends. For your world." "For friends," Hulk agreed. The first wave of undead reached them, and the real battle began. Titus fought with mechanical efficiency, each strike calculated for maximum effect. Headshots on the undead, the traditional method. His bolt rounds turned skulls into mist. His knife severed spinal columns. But for every enemy he dropped, 3 more took its place. The Hulk was a green hurricane, tearing through the undead with raw strength. But even he was beginning to slow, overwhelmed by sheer numbers. "Rogers," Titus voxed, his voice strained. "We cannot hold much longer." Almost there. Strange is breaking through the final ward. An undead soldier grabbed Titus's arm, its grip impossibly strong. Another latched onto his leg. A third aimed a rifle at his helmet's eye lens from point-blank range. The trigger pulled, and the undead soldier's head exploded as a shield ricocheted off it. Captain Rogers emerged from the warehouse, Strange beside him, both covered in blood and mystical burns. Behind them, the ritual chamber burned with golden fire as Strange's magic consumed the dark enchantments. "The ritual is broken," Strange announced. The connection severed. As he spoke, the undead warriors simply stopped. Their animation ceased. Bodies collapsed like puppets with cut strings, 5,000 corpses falling silent once more. Titus stood among the carnage, his armor's systems reporting critical damage to multiple subsystems. The Hulk transformed back into Banner, who immediately collapsed from exhaustion. "Mission accomplished," Rogers said, helping Banner to his feet. "You held the line." "Barely," Titus admitted. He surveyed the destruction around them. Hundreds of hand fighters dead, the warehouse in ruins, civilian casualties miraculously minimal thanks to S.H.I.E.L.'s evacuation. "Your methods are inefficient, but effective." Rogers actually laughed. "Coming from you, I'll take that as high praise." The victory against the Hand was Pyrrhic. The warehouse district was a charnel house, and the cleanup would take weeks. S.H.I.E.L.D. agents in hazmat suits moved through the carnage, cataloging the dead. Both the Hands fallen and the thousands of reanimated corpses now returned to their proper rest. The air stank of ozone, blood, and the peculiar, dusty scent of ancient bones. Back aboard the Helicarrier, in a sterile medical bay, Titus stood immobile as a tech priest might, allowing S.H.I.E.L.D's engineers to scan his armor for damage. The diagnostics scrolled across a nearby monitor, a litany of stress fractures in the ceramite, depleted power cells, and overtaxed servo motors. The chief engineer, a woman named Garcia, whistled lowly. The energy absorption properties of this material are insane. You took direct hits from high-caliber rounds, explosives, and something our scanners are calling low-level reality distortion. And the suit's internal systems already initiated self-repair. The nanites, or whatever these are rebuilding the molecular structure. There are no nanites, Titus corrected, his voice a low rumble. It is the machine spirit of the armor, appeased by proper ritual and maintenance. Your scans are merely observing its will to endure. Garcia shared a look with Tony Stark, who had been observing with rapt fascination. Machine spirit. Right. We'll go with that. Point is, your spirit is running on fumes, Captain. That last stand drained your power core to 15%. Another engagement like that, and you'll be an 8-foot-tall statue. Then I shall not fall in the next engagement, Titus replied, as if stating a simple fact of physics. Stark approached, holding a data slate filled with energy readings from the battle. I've been analyzing the output of that ritual. The hand was tapping into a power source that's familiar. It's not the same as the Hell Dimension Strange deals with, but it's adjacent, a different branch of the same rotten tree. Titus turned his helmeted gaze to Stark. The warp has many facets. Chaos manifests in infinite forms. That this hand accessed a similar power source is unsurprising. The universe is fundamentally hostile. Only the form of the hostility changes. See, that's the thing, Stark said, tapping the slate. Your universe's warp seems to be a roiling, sentient ocean of nightmare fuel. The energies the hand used were more structured, ordered, like a tool, not a living thing. It suggests that here, maybe these forces can be controlled, even mastered, without automatically selling your soul. A tempting and heretical thought, Titus said, the words devoid of their usual fire. He was remembering the disciplined, focused power of the hand's mystics compared to the raw, reality-devouring chaos of a demon. It is a distinction I am processing. Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Nick Fury and Steve Rogers. Fury's expression was grim. The cleanup is underway, but we have a bigger problem. We've been analyzing the hand's communications. They weren't working alone. Rogers activated a wall monitor, displaying a symbol that made Titus's blood run cold. It was a serpent, coiled and ready to strike. Hydra, Rogers said. We thought we rooted them out, but they've been operating in the shadows, funding and guiding the hand's research. They wanted that army of the dead. This Hydra, Titus said, the name tasting foul, described their philosophy. Cut off one head, 2 more shall take its place, Fury quoted. They're a fascist paramilitary organization obsessed with world domination. They believe humanity is too chaotic to rule itself and needs to be crushed under an iron fist to achieve order. A long, heavy silence filled the room. Titus looked from the symbol on the screen to the faces of the men around him. In my universe, he said slowly, that philosophy has a name. It is called the Imperial Truth. Steve Rogers stared at him, aghast. Your Imperium is like Hydra? The Imperium of Man believes humanity is a fragile candle in a galaxy of infinite darkness. It must be protected through absolute unity, unthinking faith, and the ruthless extermination of any threat, internal or external. Dissent is heresy. Deviation is mutation. Both are purged. Titus took a step toward the monitor. The methods, the iconography, the ultimate goal of total control. They are disturbingly similar. The admission hung in the air, a truth so devastating it seemed to suck the sound from the room. The mighty Ultramarine, the unwavering servant of a glorious empire, had just confessed that his life's work mirrored that of their most vile, despicable enemies. But the Emperor, Rogers finally managed. You said he protects humanity. He does, Titus insisted. But for the first time, his voice lacked its bedrock certainty. The Imperium is a necessity. The alternative is extinction at the hands of Xenos, demons, and heretics. Hydra, from your description, seeks power for its own sake. The Imperium wields power as a shield for all mankind. The motivation is different. But the execution? He fell silent, his gaze locked on the serpent emblem. The road to hell is paved with good intentions, Stark muttered. We have a saying in the Imperium, Titus countered quietly. Innocence proves nothing. A good heart does not stop a bolter round. Noble intentions do not close a warp rift. You judge the Imperium by its methods, which you find brutal. I judge your world by its results, which are perplexing. You survive despite your mercy. You triumph despite your compromises. It should not be possible. Fury stepped into the center of the room, his single eye boring into Titus. This philosophical crisis is fascinating, but we have a practical one. Hydra now knows about you. They've seen what you can do. And from what you've just said, your skill set aligns perfectly with their worldview. They're going to come for you, Captain. They're going to try to recruit you. Titus actually laughed, a short, harsh bark of sound that was utterly devoid of humor. They would fail. I serve the Emperor, not some petty cabal of would-be tyrants. Would they? Rogers asked softly. If they can convince you that their way is the only way to bring the order of your Imperium to this world? If they can show you that we, he gestured to himself and the other Avengers, are the heretics, the compromisers, the weak links? The question struck with the force of a siege hammer. Titus saw the logic, cold and impeccable. Hydra's pitch would be simple, clean, and terrifyingly familiar. This world is soft and flawed. It needs the discipline you represent. Join us, and together, we will build a new Imperium here. It was the same siren song that had seduced countless Imperial commanders to the service of chaos. The promise of achieving the Imperium's goals through more direct, more effective means. I would see through such deception, Titus stated. But the declaration felt hollow, even to him. Maybe, Fury said. But the fact that we're even having this conversation means we have a vulnerability. Your presence here is a destabilizing element. You're a weapon of mass destruction, and Hydra just found the user manual. An alert chimed on Fury's data slate. He read it, and his grim expression deepened. Speak of the devil. A Hydra cell just hit a secure facility in Germany. They stole a prototype energy core, the kind of power source that could, in theory, be used to punch a hole between dimensions. All eyes turned to Titus. The implication was clear. Hydra wasn't just interested in recruiting him. They were trying to open a door, to bring more of his kind through. Or worse, to find something in the darkness between worlds and and pull it through. The internal conflict that had been simmering in Titus since his arrival crystallized into a cold, sharp point. He was a weapon, yes, but a weapon must have a hand to wield it, and a cause to justify its use. For his entire life, that cause had been the Imperium. Now, he stood in a universe where that cause was the villain, and the heroes were the ones who championed the very ideals his people exterminated. He had thought his greatest challenge would be battling this world's monsters. He now understood his true battle was with the monster he himself represented. "This Hydra," Titus said, his voice dropping to a deadly calm. "Where are they?" The Quinjet sliced through the night sky over the Bavarian Alps, its engines a whisper against the howling wind. Inside, the atmosphere was thick with a tension that had nothing to do with the coming fight. Steve Rogers watched Titus, who stood motionless at the ramp, staring out at the jagged peaks below. The Space Marine had not spoken since they'd lifted off from the Helicarrier. "You know," Rogers began, breaking the silence, "when I came out of the ice, the world was softer than I remembered. The lines between right and wrong seemed blurred. It took me a while to find my footing." Titus did not turn. "Your world was never hard to begin with, Captain. You fought a war against a clear enemy in clean uniforms. You have never known the kind of war that scorches the soul from a galaxy. The kind where the only choices are between atrocity and annihilation. I've seen enough to know that atrocity is never the only choice," Rogers countered. "There's always a third path. It's just harder to find. A third path is a luxury for those who can afford to lose." Titus finally turned, his helmet's lenses glowing in the dim cabin. The Imperium cannot afford to lose. Not once. Not ever. A single failure can doom 1 billion souls to fates worse than death. Your third path is a gamble with stakes you cannot possibly comprehend. Before Rogers could respond, Stark's voice crackled over the comms. "Target in sight. Abandoned hydroelectric dam, just like the intel said. And Jarvis is picking up massive energy readings from the primary generator hall. Looks like our Hydra friends are almost done with their science project." The Quinjet descended into a hidden valley, landing silently in a pine forest a kilometer from the dam. As the ramp lowered, the team assembled. Rogers, Romanoff, Stark in his armor, and Titus. Banner had remained behind, the Hulk deemed too volatile for a stealth infiltration of a facility containing a dimensional weapon. "Remember the plan," Rogers said, his breath misting in the frigid air. "In and out. Disable the device, secure the core. No grandstanding. Grandstanding is an inefficient use of resources," Titus stated, his auto senses scanning the tree line. "I will adhere to the tactical parameters." They moved through the forest like ghosts. Titus, for all his immense size, moved with a predator's silence, his power armor absorbing sound rather than generating it. They reached a maintenance entrance, a heavy steel door set into the concrete of the dam. Romanoff made short work of the electronic lock, and they slipped inside. The interior was a cathedral of forgotten industry, a vast space of rusting catwalks and dormant turbines. The air hummed with stolen power, all of it being funneled toward the central generator hall. They crept along a high gantry, looking down upon the scene below. Hydra soldiers in black combat gear stood guard around a complex apparatus built around the dam's main turbine. At its heart was the stolen energy core, pulsing with a malevolent violet light. Wires and conduits snaked from it to a ring of metallic arms that were tearing at the very air, creating a shimmering, unstable vortex. A man in a white Hydra officer's uniform supervised, his voice echoing in the vast space. The readings are stabilizing. The gateway is forming. Our friends from beyond are eager to meet their new herald. He's not just opening a door, Stark whispered, his suit's sensors whirring quietly. He's sending an invitation, a beacon. Titus's targeting reticule settled on the officer. The source of the heresy is identified. Permission to engage? Negative, Rogers said. We need to know what he's calling through. We disabled the device first. As if hearing them, the officer looked up, a smirk on his face. He raised a hand, and the guards on the catwalks opposite them turned, their weapons aiming not at the Avengers, but at the shadows behind them. From those shadows, figures emerged. They were larger than the other soldiers, clad in heavier, cruder armor that seemed to drink the light. Their movements were jarringly familiar to Titus, the disciplined, powerful strides of soldiers bred for war. Captain Valoran, the Hydra officer called out, his voice amplified. We've been expecting you. We've prepared a welcoming committee of like-minded individuals. The figures stepped into the light. They were not space marines. Their armor was a patchwork of scavenged parts, their weapons poorly maintained, their posture one of feral aggression. But the genetic bulk was there, the enhanced stature, the aura of transhuman killing power. What in God's name are they? Romanoff breathed. Rejects, Titus answered, his voice cold with a mixture of pity and disgust. Failed aspirants. Or perhaps the twisted creations of a heretic attempting to replicate the Emperor's work without his divine guidance. They are pitiful. They look plenty dangerous to me, Stark said, his repulsors glowing. The officer laughed. Behold, the future of this world. The strong ruling the weak as is their right. Captain, these are your true brothers, not these sentimentalists you walk with. Join us. Help us open this gate fully. Let us bring the order and purity of your Imperium to this chaotic ball of mud. Rogers looked at Titus. This is it, Captain. The choice. Their way. He nodded toward Hydra. Or ours. Titus looked down at the failed space marines. He saw in them a reflection of what he could become here. A weapon without a soul, serving a cause of pure domination. He looked at the tear in reality, and he knew with absolute certainty what waited on the other side. Not the Emperor's light, but the ravenous hunger of the warp. Hydra, in its arrogance, was summoning its own destruction, and they wanted to use him as the key. He had spent days observing the Avengers' weakness, their mercy, their hope, their belief in redemption. He had watched them save a witch instead of burning her, and in doing so, save a city. He had fought beside them, not as a master of lesser beings, but as a comrade. The Codex Astartes had no protocol for this. The Emperor's teachings offered no guidance. For the first time in 2 centuries, Brother Captain Titus Valoran was utterly, completely on his own. He made his choice. His bolt pistol came up, but not toward the officer or the failed aspirants. He aimed at the energy core powering the dimensional rift. Stark, he voxed. The core. We shatter it together. The Hydra officer's smirk vanished. Kill them! The failed aspirants roared and charged, their movements powerful but clumsy. The true battle for Titus's soul had begun, and it would be fought with bolter and blade. Chaos erupted in the generator hall. The failed aspirants, for all their lack of finesse, possessed terrifying speed and strength. They bounded across catwalks and scaled support pillars with feral grace, their crude weapons spitting solid slug rounds that sparked and ricocheted off Titus's armor. I'll handle the light show. You handle the rejects, Stark yelled, unleashing a volley of repulsor blasts at the energy core. A shimmering barrier of violet energy flared around the device, absorbing the impacts. "They have a shield," Romanov called out, flipping over a railing to avoid a burst of gunfire from Hydra regulars. "The core is the source. It must be breached." Titus roared, firing his bolt pistol. The mass-reactive round took the lead aspirant in the shoulder, exploding and spinning the creature around. It barely slowed, its enhanced physiology ignoring the grievous wound. They were tougher than they looked. Rogers' shield slammed into a second aspirant's chest, the vibranium impact producing a sickening crack of bone. The creature grunted, staggered, but surged forward again. "They don't stay down. They are transhuman like myself. Aim for the head or spine," Titus commanded, his voice the calm center of the storm. He met the charge of the first aspirant, sidestepping a wild swing of a power maul and driving his combat knife up under its chin. The monomolecular edge punched through bone and into the brain. The creature convulsed and fell, finally still. The tactical part of his mind was coolly assessing, adapting. These were not true Adeptus Astartes. They were brutish, unsubtle, a mockery of the Emperor's design. Fighting them was like fighting a rabid thunderwolf. Dangerous, but predictable. The real threat was the rift. The shimmering tear in reality was growing, and through it, he could now feel a familiar, chilling presence. The warp, or something so close it made no difference. Hydra's arrogance was about to unleash a horror that would consume them all. "Strange, we could use a little mystical assistance," Stark shouted, dodging a hail of fire as he continued to hammer the energy shield. "I'm a little busy." Strange's voice was strained over the comm. "The dimensional feedback is creating psychic echoes across the city. I'm containing a dozen minor ruptures before they get out of hand. You need to break that core." The Hydra officer, seeing his aspirants falling, backed toward a control console. "It's too late. The gateway is stable. Behold the power Hydra will wield." He threw a switch. The vortex flared, and the hum of energy became a deafening shriek. From the tear, a clawed, chitinous limb, dripping with ectoplasmic slime, forced its way through. A single baleful eye swiveled atop a stalk, fixing on the scene before it. A lesser demon, drawn by the beacon. "By the Emperor," Titus whispered, the sight triggering 10,000 years of ingrained hatred and duty. The demon screeched, a sound that clawed at the mind. Several Hydra soldiers clutched their heads, screaming as their sanity unraveled. The failed aspirants, however, seemed energized by its presence, their attacks becoming more frenzied. "New target," Rogers yelled, deflecting a blow from an aspirant's axe. "The rift takes priority," Titus countered. He turned his fire from the aspirants to the energy core, his bolt rounds splashing harmlessly against the shield. "Stark, a concentrated attack, everything on one point. On it, unibeam, full power." A brilliant beam of energy lanced from the chest of Stark's armor, striking the shield at the same spot Titus was targeting. The violet barrier flickered violently. The demon fully emerged, a thing of nightmare and impossible angles. It ignored the Hydra soldiers, its gaze locking onto Titus. It recognized him, a being of order in a universe of potential chaos. A threat. It lunged, crossing the vast space in a blur. Titus braced, his combat knife held high. The creature slammed into him, its claws scraping deep furrows in his ceramite chestplate. The impact drove him back, his boots screeching against the concrete floor. The stench of the warp filled his olfactory sensors, a smell he knew all too well. "Get that shield down," he roared over the strain of holding the demon at bay. Romanov, seeing the officer at the console, made her move. She swung down from a cable, landing behind him and putting a widow's bite to his temple. "Shut it down. Now." The officer laughed, a manic gleam in his eye. "I am become the door." He slammed his fist on the console. The energy core flared brighter than the sun, and the shield around it vanished as all power was diverted to the rift. The gateway expanded, and the demon grew in size and power, its form becoming more solid, more real. "The shield is down, but the rift is going critical," Stark reported. Titus, with a surge of strength born of 2 centuries of war, threw the demon back. He didn't pursue it. His objective was clear. He raised his bolt pistol, now with a clear shot at the unprotected core. "For the Imperium," he bellowed, and fired his last 3 rounds. The first bolt struck the core casing. The second hit a power conduit. The third, perfectly aimed, slammed directly into the heart of the prototype. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, a sound like the universe gasping. The violet light intensified, then collapsed inward. The demon shrieked, not in triumph, but in terror, as its connection to this reality was severed. It was pulled back into the collapsing rift, its form unraveling into nothingness. The implosion became an explosion. A wave of concussive force hurled everyone back. Titus was thrown against a turbine, his armor cracking under the impact. The Hydra officer was vaporized. The failed aspirants, their connection to whatever dark power sustained them, broken, crumpled into lifeless husks. Silence descended, broken only by the crackle of dying electronics and the drip of water. Titus pushed himself to his feet, his armor system screaming damage reports. He looked around the devastated hall. Rogers was helping Romanoff up. Stark was landing, his armor scorched. The threat was over. Hydra's plot was foiled. The demon was banished. He stood amidst the wreckage, a warrior from a universe of absolute certainty, in a world built on shades of gray. He had fought not for an emperor 10,000 years away, but for the people beside him. He had chosen their flawed, hopeful path over the familiar brutality of his own. He had saved this world, not by purging it, but by protecting it. The choice was made. The path was clear. The dust settled over the Bavarian Dam, both literally and figuratively. In the aftermath, S.H.I.E.L.D. containment teams swarmed the facility, cataloging the bizarre remains of the failed aspirants and hauling away the stunned Hydra survivors. The official story would be a terrorist plot involving advanced weapons, another secret buried in a world already overflowing with them. But for those who had been inside the generator hall, the truth was far more profound. Brother Captain Titus Valoran stood apart from the cleanup efforts, a solitary giant of ceramite and conviction amidst the mundane efficiency of S.H.I.E.L.D. agents. His armor was a testament to the battle. Scarred and pitted, the proud blue of the Ultramarines marred by blackened scorch marks and deep gouges. He watched as the last of the dimensional energy was carefully contained by Dr. Strange, the sorcerer ensuring no lingering taint remained. Steve Rogers approached, his own uniform torn and dirty. He didn't speak at first, simply coming to stand beside the Space Marine, following his gaze to the now silent, broken core. "You stopped them," Rogers said finally. "You made the right choice." "The choice was never about right or wrong," Titus replied, his voice a low, resonant hum. "It was about identity. Hydra offered me a reflection of what I was. You showed me a possibility of what I could be." He turned his helmeted head toward Rogers. "I have spent 2 centuries as a weapon in the Emperor's hand, a perfect, unthinking instrument of war. Here, I have been forced to think. to question, to choose. And what have you decided? That a weapon without a conscience is a danger to all, even to those it claims to protect. The Imperium's strength is its unity. Its weakness is its inability to evolve. You and your companions, you adapt, you learn, you forgive. These are not weaknesses. They are a different kind of strength, a resilience of spirit, not just of body. He looked out at the rising sun, painting the alpine peaks in hues of gold and pink. The beauty of it was still a strange, almost heretical concept. In the 41st millennium, sunrises were often blotted out by smog, or the ominous glow of orbital docks, or the hellish light of a dying star. I cannot return to my universe, Titus stated, the finality absolute. And even if I could, I am no longer certain I would belong there. My faith in the Emperor is not broken, but my understanding of his purpose has expanded. So what will you do? Rogers asked. Titus activated his helmet's release with a hiss of equalizing pressure, removing it and tucking it under his arm. The cool mountain air washed over his face, a sensation he had not felt in decades outside of a reclusium. His features were as stern and battle-hardened as one would expect, but his eyes, for the first time, held not just resolve, but contemplation. I will remain. I will fight for this world, with you, but I will not do so as an Avenger. I am not a hero in your sense of the word. I am a soldier. He met Rogers's gaze. I will be your shield against the darkness that my kind of war represents. I will stand on the wall and watch for the threats that require not a hero's compassion, but a soldier's ruthlessness. When a demon threatens to consume a city, I will be there to burn it out. When a Xenos horror emerges from the void, I will be the first to meet it. I will be the reminder of the price of survival, so that you may continue to be the beacon of its meaning. It was a bittersweet victory. Titus had not been redeemed in the classic sense. He was too forged in the fires of eternal war for that. Nor had he been broken. He had been tempered. He had taken the unyielding ceramite of his imperial conditioning and the reforged steel of Marvel's hope and merged them into something new. A protector who understood the cost of protection. A warrior who had seen the value of what he fought for, not just the anathema of what he fought against. He was stranded, a relic of the cruelest possible future, in a present that still believed in second chances. And in that impossible junction, Brother Captain Titus Valoran finally found a cause that was truly worth dying for. Ensuring that this universe would never, ever become his own.